Welcome to the Teach Them Diligently podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Nunnery, and I am so glad that you're here. Today we have a very special guest. Jonathan Coussens is an award-winning commercial director, writer, and producer who's making his directorial debut working with Mike Rowe on Something to Stand For. This is a project that blends Jonathan's love for authentic storytelling with his appreciation for American history. And it's a project that I am so excited about. And I think your families are going to really enjoy and appreciate. So I cannot wait for you to hear all about it over the next few minutes. Now, in case you want to go ahead and snag your tickets, though, Something to Stand For will be in theaters from June 27th until July 4th. And it's a movie that I hope you will support and that you and your children alike will enjoy. You can go to somethingtostandfor.movie to get your tickets now. While you're there, be sure to pick up a discussion guide so you have some great resources to take the stories you hear and the lessons you learn even farther as a family. You can find the discussion guide and answer key at the bottom of the page. So again, you can get your tickets now to see Something to Stand For in theaters only until July 4th at somethingtostandfor.movie. And we'll link all of those things in the show notes below. Hey, you guys, welcome back. I am particularly excited about a new project that's coming out. Mike Rowe, who my kids grew up listening to, watching Dirty Jobs, listening to him tell stories about history and all kinds of awesome stuff, is working together with Jonathan Coussens and coming out with a new movie this week, Something to Stand For. We're going to look at, or in that movie, he's going to look at 9 stories from history, telling us, making connections, telling us why our country is so unique, why this is something so important for our children to know. It's going to be fascinating. You're going to love it. You're going to want to go see it. But today I'm so excited to be able to talk to Jonathan Coussens, who is the director of Something to Stand For. So Jonathan, welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me, Leslie. Excited to be here.
Well, you are so welcome. We, as a homeschool community, absolutely love history. We dive in with both feet. We talk about it, like even in our threads on social media. You hear a lot of us talking about history stuff because as parents, we tend to almost geek out about the stuff that we're learning that we didn't learn in our own education. Now we're able to learn it alongside our children. So I'm very, very excited about you guys bringing these stories to life in the way that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about how this project came together and kind of what it's for?
Yeah, sure. So, this project is called Something to Stand For, and it's a film really about American history. I've been working with Mike Rowe for the last 4 years, and our company, Impact Productions, was originally hired to take his podcast, The Way I Heard It, which he shares a bunch of American history stories in. And I really encourage your families to take a listen to that. But we took his podcast and we would visualize it for screen. So taking an audio form of entertainment, and then we would take it and make it visual. So
Wow.
we've been doing that for the last 4 years. We've done, I think, about 78 different little short stories. The stories are all kind of in the vein of Paul Harvey, if your audience is familiar with him. We take a mystery, or Mike takes a mystery, and then you don't know who it's about or really what event it's about. And along the way, gives you a whole bunch of clues. And then at the end, he reveals, oh, that was a president, or oh, that was
I love
John
that.
Deere. Like it's a really fun way to tell a story. And so what we did is we took 9 of the most patriotic, most American loving stories and put them all in a film. And it releases, like you said, June 27th, and it's in theaters to the 4th of July. So
Wow.
if you love history and you love America, there is not a better movie to see. I promise you that.
What a fun way to really celebrate Independence Day and help your kids better understand it. You and I were talking before we started recording about how important it is to really make connections, to see beyond just the headline of history. Can you tell us a little bit about how this film helps do that?
Absolutely. I think whenever people are learning history in school, and you know I know for me personally, I loved going to history class because I had an amazing history teacher,
Yeah.
and he was able to take the highlights or the headlines of history, and then dig really deep into the personal moments and the personalities and the people and their stories
Mm.
of how history came to be. And so what we attempt to do in this film is, you know the story, I'm sure, of the civil rights movement, but did you know most one of the most influential people in the civil rights movement had an interesting way of getting there? Or,
Hmm.
we know the story of the Civil War, but did you know? I'm not going to give you any spoiler alerts, but like we tell you kind of the behind the scenes. We pull the curtain back and show you the people that really, made a difference in the history, and we tell their stories and really make connections to the individuals that really made our history come to life.
I love that. It's so much stickier, I found, to learn about the humans involved, to learn the people's stories rather than just the facts. Facts are so sterile, but lives matter. And so I love the fact that you're taking that approach and you're really opening this up with some kind of behind the scenes stories of the big things that we've heard before. How did you choose the 9 that you kind of landed on?
Yeah, so we have about 78, like I said, in kind of the archive.
Hmm.
And as we were looking at the archive and hearing kind of the narrative that was coming through the news, it's all
Mm.
over the media that our country's divided, our country, it's all left or it's all right. And there's, people are looking at our history and pointing out all of its flaws, all of our mistakes. Uh, we were we were kind of like, our stories tell a different
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
And it's a story of sacrifice. It's a story of determination. It's a
Mm.
story of courage and grit. It's a story of people giving their all for freedom. And so, whenever we were looking at doing a movie, we looked at the archive and said, these stories I think will tell a different story of American history that the media isn't telling right now,
Right.
and hopefully, it will cause people to look back on our history with gratitude.
Mm.
And really, that's kind of our goal. The movie's a love letter to American history,
Wow.
and it's also a letter, I think, to the next generation that says, hey, we do have mistakes in our past, but let's not forget the people that have sacrificed for the freedoms that we all have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's true. We're very quick to judge, and the whole narrative has been so harsh and so condemning of things that have happened in our past. But the truth of the matter is there were imperfect people, there were very imperfect times, imperfect ways of thinking that
Yeah,
now we look at in, just horror.
yeah,
But contextually, you've got to look at what the times were like and what the realities were and how that fit at the time. You can't just lift up history and drop it in today and expect it to make the same kind of sense.
yeah. I completely agree. I hope that we're not judged
Mm.
200 years in the future by our children and grandchildren that look back on us and go, look at those fools, look at those
Yeah,
idiots. What were they doing? What were they thinking? And uh, I think we look back at the history of our country and we're looking at that through this modern lens that I
mm,
think is unfair. And
right.
and I think we don't necessarily take into context the entire situation, number one, but we also don't understand. We live in air conditioning,
Right.
number one. And we get food from a grocery store. Like all of these things they could have never imagined in their time. And yet
Mm,
we're looking back on them, judging them by our standards, by our way of life, by our moral compass. And we forget, these guys, these people were doing the best that they could in their own time and in their
yeah.
own culture. And we shouldn't throw out the greatness of their uh we shouldn't throw out their we shouldn't throw out their ideas, we shouldn't throw out their philosophy or even what they tried to accomplish because they made mistakes
Right.
based on what we see mistakes as today. So
Right.
um this movie, we even address it. We talk about people tearing down statues and
Mm,
judging people in their time. And I think Mike actually does it by the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C. And it's a moment of reflection, I guess, on
yeah.
how far we've come, but also like, should we be doing this? Should we be judging people this way and tearing down their statues and tearing down what they stood for and all the things that they've given us? Does that get thrown out too because of
Mm,
one mistake or because of things that they were living by? So it's a it's not. I shouldn't say that it's not a political film at all
right.
in that way, but it's a it's a patriotic film and reminds people that, you know, our founding fathers were flawed, but we
Hmm.
shouldn't throw out their values.
Absolutely. Well, and you know, what I want our families to really hear and get behind is so much of what our kids are going to hear out and about in their neighborhoods, whatever, because most kids are taught a very different narrative right now in schools, is so flawed. And to be able to have something tangible, especially where the people move and they're actually doing things, and you can see how young they were and how bold they were. This wasn't We weren't founded by a bunch of really, really old guys who had lived their entire lives. There was a lot of young, just the bravery, the boldness, the foresight of these guys is astonishing. But that gets overlooked so much now. And so to be able to really dive in and put, even if it's not their face, a face to that character, a personality to those people, I think is so very powerful.
Yeah, I think, I've kind of been saying it a lot doing interviews for the movie. We have to look at the past with gratitude and
Yeah.
not with judgment. And then we have to look to the future with hope. And I
Mm,
think both of those things are essential to understand where you came from, but then to also know where you're going. And learning more than just the headlines of history is so important, because then you're able to take really personal nuggets to apply to your own life and make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that people have made in the past, but also you can take their courage, their determination, all of their sacrifice with you into the future, knowing that, hey, maybe you can make a difference.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't want to get you to give us too many spoilers. I know you're very reticent to do that, but I
Yeah.
do want to know, first of all, did you learn anything through this process? Like anything new that was a huge revelation for you that so I guess I'm asking it because so much through the time I was homeschooling my kids, I would like run downstairs and tell David, just listen to this. This is so cool. And so I'd love to hear something that you learned that was really, really cool through the making of this.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite story is actually the one I learned the most about, but also kind of the climax of the movie at the end of the movie. And it takes place during the War of 1812
Mm.
and in Baltimore with Francis Scott Key. And a lot of people think of, the Star Spangled Banner. Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner, but they don't know how that really came to be. They don't realize that there were two boys, two teenage boys, that without them, we probably wouldn't have won the war of
Wow.
1812. They didn't know that there was a doctor who stood up for what he believed, that was imprisoned on a boat out in the Chesapeake Bay. And without him, we probably wouldn't have won the war of 1812. And then there was a slave fighting for his freedom at Fort McHenry, preparing all of these ramparts that we hear
Mm.
about in Star Spangled Banner. And it's because of him and all of these stories intertwined that, we are still have the United States of America. And so, I'm not giving away any spoilers in in that answer, but what I hope to convey is that there's so much more to our history, and this movie really goes into uh, a a deep understanding of, you may just know these little nuggets of history, but you don't know the people that really
Yeah.
made the history.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie does. We tell 9 of these different stories and reveal these people and their courage and their determination and their sacrifice. and what that has done for our freedom, what that has given to our country. And hopefully people walk away reflecting on their sacrifice, but knowing,
Mm.
they can make a difference too in history if they just, uh, if they too make a sacrifice for their
Yeah.
future. So,
Yeah. Well, and it takes all ages, all classes to engage. That's our
mhm.
country wasn't just built by one group of people. We are a melting pot, and our history was written by a whole bunch of different people of all ages, all classes. And I think that's a really important takeaway as well, because everyone needs to be involved in creating what we're going to leave to our children and our grandchildren, and now is the time to stand up and do that.
Absolutely. I think, know, not to get too personal, but in my own life, my parents, we did something special every year. We would go on family vacation, and we would do three things on family vacation in the summer. We would go to an amusement park, we'd go to a baseball game, and then my parents would drag me and my two sisters to a battlefield or to some place historical. And what that did was it really gave me an appreciation of history, but it also really made history come alive, and that's
Yeah.
why I love it. And that was part of the reason why I was so excited to do this project. But for your families, using the tools that you have to bring the curriculum or the stories to life is so important, because it gives your children perspective, and it
Hmm.
gives them a heart to understand that the world is bigger than themselves. It's bigger than just your little family, and you can play a part in impacting the world. And so, this movie, hopefully something to stand for, not only does it give you something to stand for, but hopefully it gives you something to reflect on,
Yeah.
and something to take away into your own life. And I'm sure your families will absolutely love it. It's as far as like age groups go, I have a 10-year-old son. There are some battle scenes in the film. They're not bloody or gory too much. I'd let my 10-year-old watch it, but the themes are definitely all there, of courage, of sacrifice, of determination,
Mm.
and I think it's important that our next generation really understand that these men and women in our history have those values, and we have to tell these stories so the next generation also has these values.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, where can our audience find out about the movie? So let's start there. I have a couple other questions, but tell us where we can
Yeah,
find
no,
find
yeah,
out
you can
about the
get
movie.
tickets at somethingtostandfor.movie. It's playing all over the country. We're in 1,000 theaters. It's opening on June 27th, and it'll be in theaters to the 4th of July, so only for 7 days. And it's really, really important that you go and see the movie
Hmm.
and in theaters, because you know we say you vote with your money, right?
Right.
And whenever you're purchasing a ticket to this movie, you're saying these are the things that I value. So if you
Right.
value history, if you value teaching a lesson to the next generation, go see it in the theater. We're not a Hollywood movie. This movie was made in Oklahoma. All of the actors, all of the crew was from right here in my state in Oklahoma. And Mike says if you want to make a movie from the heart, you got to go to the heartland.
There you
And
go.
that's what this movie has. And so if your families are interested, go to somethingtostandfor.movie, June 27th through July 4th. Make a difference.
That's amazing. And where can we find Mike's podcast so that once they see the movie, they can dive into some of these other stories?
Yeah, his podcast is called The Way I Heard It, and it's available on all podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, anywhere that you can get a podcast, you can listen to it. It's called The Way I Heard It, and it's an anthology series. So like he's done hundreds of them at this point, but the stories that really that I think your families would be interested in are kind of at the very, very beginning of his podcast. So go all
Okay.
the way back deep into the archives, listen to him. And I'd encourage you, listen to him before your kids do, and watch your kids' eyes light up. So that way you have an idea of kind of where the mystery is going. And at the end, you can kind of prepare to answer all their questions and go through it with them, and see all the Easter eggs that and little clues that Mike was laying all along the way.
Oh, what a great idea. He's such a a talented storyteller, whether it be in his podcast, in his shows, in his writing. I've read so many things that he's written. And he just has such a gift with that, that I am confident that it will make everything come alive for your kids, but also for you. So many of
Yeah,
the
I mean,
families,
it's fun. I mean, like
yeah,
it's what we tried to do in the movie was really not just reveal great stories, but really entertain people. We've
yeah,
screened it for hundreds of people at this point, and everyone walks away laughing, crying, reflecting. I mean, like it's for the women, it's got a great love story in it. For the guys, it's got a whole bunch of battle scenes. I mean, like so it's there's really something for the whole family, and it's a great movie. It's a one of a kind thing. It's not like a true documentary in a
right.
sense, but it's not like a narrative film. It's kind of one of a kind,
Wow.
and it's really special. And I hope people go see it June 27th through July 4th. It's really fun. You'll walk away really happy you saw it. I promise.
Well, David watched it and he immediately texted all of our adult children, "You have got to go see this movie." He came upstairs. He told me that we are absolutely, all of us are going to see it. It is phenomenal. So I can't wait to see it. I'm on a book deadline right now, so I wasn't able to watch the screener with him, but he loved it.
Well,
And
that's good because now you got to buy a ticket. So
exactly. Well, we would have done that anyway. But yes, he loved it. He's already told our kids that they have to go see it. They're excited about it. I hope that all of you guys who are listening will be as excited as we are. This is a great way to celebrate our freedom. This is a great way to lead into the 4th of July. You know, a lot of us through the years have had, or I used to do this anyway. I'm making the assumption you do too. I would often do unit studies around holidays and really dive into what went on that created these times for us. This is a great way to just kind of incorporate into the middle of your summer some really good learning. I think you are going to love this movie. I am going to love this movie because I love studying history and learning those little tidbits that just enrich my understanding of what has come before so well. So, Jonathan, one more time before we go, tell us where everyone can get tickets, what the dates are. I don't want to leave anything, where they missed it the first time, and we'll be sure and put that in the show notes as well.
yeah, it's something to stand for dot movie, and then you can get tickets online. It's in 1,000 theaters across the country: AMC, Regal, Cinemark. So there's definitely a showing near you. Something
Mhm.
to stand for dot movie, and it's only in theaters for 7 days, June 27th through the 4th of July. You know, Leslie, I was just listening, thinking we often forget at Christmas time what Christmas is really about. We often forget at Easter what Easter is really
Exactly.
about. And the 4th of July is kind of no different, right? It's not about just fireworks and hot dogs. Like there is something really to stand for at the 4th of
Right.
July. So I think it's a great Independence Day film, and I really hope your families go and see it.
I do too. I do too. So everybody, get your tickets now. Go to something to stand for movie. Let's support this film. Let's show Hollywood, the theaters, everyone, like you said, by voting with our money. Let's show them what's important to us. It's really hard to say that we're really irritated that nothing comes out for us when it does, we don't support it. So let's get out. Let's show our support for this. I cannot wait to hear what you think. So share your stories with us. When I post this on social media, tell us what you thought of the movie. Tell us what your takeaways were. Tell us what your kids' favorite stories were. I want to hear all of that. So make sure you go get your tickets. Tell us all about it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I look forward to talking to you again real soon.